Welcome back. You're watching Credlin. Well, the fallout from Harry and Meghan's bombshell interview with Oprah Winfrey continues, with the British media identity Piers Morgan quitting his breakfast TV hosting gig following an on-air spat with a colleague.
And I understand that you don't like Meghan Markle. You've made it so clear a number of times on this programme, a number of times. And I understand that you've got a personal relationship with Meghan Markle, or had one, and she cut you off. She's entitled to cut you off if she wants to. Has she said anything about you since she cut you off? I don't think she has, but yet you continue to trash her.
OK, I'm done with this.
No.
Sorry, no.
Sorry. Do you know what? That's pathetic.
You can trash me, maybe not mine.
No.
See you later.
I'm being...
Sorry, can't do this.
This is absolutely diabolical behaviour.
All right, for some much-needed common sense, I'm joined from Newcastle by the leader of One Nation in New South Wales, Mark Latham. Some extraordinary claims, Mark, made by Meghan Markle in that interview, particularly, of course, around the alleged racism remarks made by an unnamed member of the royal family, and an unhinged tweet from a Greens senator in New South Wales, Mehreen Faruqi, who says, and I'll quote her, "The royals preside over an empire that has enslaved millions of black and brown people around the world. That racism and colonialism continues," she went on. "Queen Elizabeth needs to give back all the money and culture her family stole and profited off with interest and reparations." All right, Mark, your reaction?
Well, Peter, where do we start? It's all getting pretty wild, isn't it? Piers Morgan there, he did a Rita Panahi-style walk-off, but this is a bit more serious. He's never coming back to that program. We all love Rita, and at least she fronts up the next day. So Piers Morgan has walked off and stayed off. As for Mehreen Faruqi, well, this is sort of, British derangement syndrome, isn't it? I'm a Republican, but I've got to say that reflecting on the Queen's reign, and for a lady at the age of 94, she still does a remarkable job. You've got to admire her for the stability she's given to that institution, the leadership she's given to her nation for 70 years now, and leadership in that family where she's had to deal with some wacky characters, and she must look askance at how Meghan and Harry and even Prince Charles have gone woke, lecturing us from their mansions about inequality, lecturing us about how the world's about to end from climate change when they've got big carbon footprints themselves. So, I think we need to calm down. I see Matt Keane's beating the Republican drum out of this, saying that Australia should get out of the royal setup just like Harry has. Well, I think we've got to admire the Queen, recognise that most Australians regard this as a very low-order issue, the question of the Republic. And I think most Australians would think that the royal family made a mistake when they invited Meghan Markle in. They didn't need the Hollywood celebrity woke culture to tamper with their institution, and they're paying a pretty heavy price for that.
Well, and of course, Harry's always known where he sat in the batting order. I don't know why it's such a surprise. And if he says he wants to be financially independent, he shouldn't be surprised when his father cuts him off at the ripe old age of, 36 or whatever he is. I mean, come on.
Time to get a job.
This is ridiculous.
Time to get a real job.
I'm surprised, actually, that you're on a unity ticket with Matt Keane. I was saying, Matt Keane, Malcolm Turnbull and Paul Keating all being on the same side of an issue is not likely to win many votes out there in the real world, but throw Mark Latham in there, maybe it might come back to them. I want to go to a tweet. You drew it to my attention. Craig Memory, he's an energy and water expert from the Public Interest Advocacy Centre, who was appointed, if you can believe it, by Matt Keane to co-chair New South Wales Government's Renewable Energy Sector Board, referring to reports Scott Morrison would announce 2050 net zero aspiration. This bloke Memory was out there on Twitter and he said 2030, 2050 are too late. We must abolish Mondays to immediately slash emissions by 1/7. Who's with me? Now, I remember the Boomtown Rats song. I don't like Mondays. I don't know that I'd go so far as wanting to scrap Mondays, but is he joking or not?
Well, no, I went through the comments on that Twitter feed there, Peter, and I was looking for the punchline, but there was none. This guy was serious about saying close the economy down on Mondays to cut the emissions by 1/7. And you can laugh at that proposition, but the sad thing for the workers of New South Wales is that when Matt Keane, with the help of Labor, put through his 100% renewables bill, they said, one of the objectives here is to create manufacturing jobs, because at the moment in New South Wales, there's not a single manufacturing entity that makes solar panels all makes wind turbines. So if you're going to go 100% renewable under the current setup, it's mostly creating manufacturing jobs in China and other countries overseas, because we import these materials to create wind and solar farms. So Labor said, and the AWU, one of their senior unions, said, we'll set up a manufacturing renewables board to do something about that. At least can we get some manufacturing jobs making solar panels and wind farms here in New South Wales. And Dan Walton from the AWU is the co-chair of the board, along with this guy Memory. But it just shows you how, for workers in New South Wales, it's farcical that they would bring someone in for the serious task of job creation who seriously believes in closing the economy down on Monday. You know, these are serious times. You're going to make an energy transition. You need serious people. But for Matt Keane and the Labor Party, it was a case of send in the clowns.
Yeah, but just on that, it was only a couple of days ago that New South Wales government via Keane announced the $750 million of taxpayer money into a whole raft of green energy subsidies. I mean, if it stacks up, surely it's got to stack up on market principles, at least if a Liberal Party is running the government. Doesn't appear that, though.
Well, no, this is the deterioration of the New South Wales Liberal Party, and also the union movement and the Labor Party have all colluded on this, that to create manufacturing jobs in New South Wales, supposedly, out of the growth of renewable energy, you bring in a guy who says close down the economy on Mondays. So Matt Keane is not serious about job creation. That scheme he had the other day is rebadging the Climate Change Fund. It's run out of useful things to spend money on. It was spending money on shade cloths in shopping centres, and now they're going to try and go down the mythical path of green steel, hydrogen steel and the like. These are no solutions to long-term employment generation in New South Wales, nor the idea that the co-chair of the much-touted Renewables Manufacturing Board is someone who wants to close it all down on a Monday and cause economic carnage for the workers of New South Wales. Peter, these are not serious people dealing with the challenges in a serious way.
No, and all the while, China's pretty serious. I mean, China's getting all of our money, and it's not abiding by any of these rules, energy-wise or security-wise.